Welcome everyone back to AbbeyCast. Today we have with us Brother Dennis Snyder. Brother Dennis Snyder is a member of the Franciscans, Third Order Religious. Brother Dennis, thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, thanks, Andrew, for having me here today.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure. You are a longtime friend of the Norbertine community here at the Abbey, and I was fortunate enough to get to meet you, I believe it was last year, or maybe it was 2 years ago, that you came here for a stay at the Abbey, and it was just a pleasure meeting you. So here you are back at the Abbey, and I'll let you tell our audience a little bit about how you're connected to the Norbertines and why you're here now.
Okay. Yeah. Back in 2008, I came to Daylesford Abbey because I had permission from my community to begin my doctoral studies at Immaculata University in education. So in looking around for places to stay, a good friend of mine said to me, "Why don't you look into Daylesford Abbey with the Norbertines?" And my first question was, well, how far is that from Immaculata? And it's only a 15-minute ride. So that's how I was introduced. I came to Daylesford Abbey, and I met at the time Father Richard Antonucci and Father Andrew Safferny. Father Richard was not an abbot yet. I think he was the prior here. So I interviewed with both of them. And the funny thing was, when Richard Antonucci saw me, he said, "I know you from somewhere." He said, "I met you from somewhere." And I said, "Really?" And we got talking, and it didn't go on from there. Well, when I came to Daylesford Abbey and was living here during the month, he said one time, we were just sitting chatting and talking in the community room. He said, "I know where I saw you. You were at Bishop Egan High School." I said, "That's right." And he said, "I was the principal at Newman High School." And as soon as he said that, it clicked, because we had a disciplinary problem at a football game. And I had to bring the student
Between the two high schools?
between the two high schools. And I was at the time assistant disciplinarian with Bob O'Neill. And our principal, our great principal, Brother Mark McBride, said to me, "Take him down to Newman and have him apologize to the athletic director and the principal." And the principal at that time was Richard Antonucci. Now, I completely forgot about meeting Richard in that circumstance. But so that was really a relaxing thing to bring about that story. And I studied here, going to Immaculata, from 2008 to 2012. So I was here 4 years. Every summer I would go to Cape May, taking care of our Cape May house. So during the school year, I was in residency here. And my community was gracious enough to let me work on the doctorate full time. And as soon as I was done the doctorate, I was sent to St. Francis University in Loretto, Pennsylvania, and I am in the education department there, teaching young men and women how to prepare for the profession of teaching, to be teachers. But my stay here for 4 years, I remember I came into full circle here the second year I was here, when Father Richard Antonucci said to me, he said, "Dennis, would you mind if we give you a house job?" And I thought, that's fine. I said, and then I knew I must really be part of this community. So I had a house job, which was not hard at all. It was helping Father Frank Cortez set up the hors d'oeuvres for different meetings and things like that.
Sounds like a nice job to have.
It was very nice.
Good social job, for sure. That's great. Well, yeah, you can definitely see, the sense of fellowship that is evident within the Norbertine community, but then how well they go to extend that to other people that are not professed Norbertines. There's the associates here, there's everyone else that is involved with the Abbey, there's the staff, there are other religious like yourself that come to the Abbey for a time of rest, or in this case, back in the 2008, you said you started,
right? Yeah.
Was a study. So you were studying at Immaculata, and how did you come to Immaculata as the university that you would study at for your doctoral program?
Well, the sisters that run Immaculata, that staff Immaculata, the Immaculate Heart of Mary sisters, IHMs, they're known throughout this area as good teachers.
Okay.
They're superb teachers. That's all they do. Just like the Christian brothers. The only thing they do is teach. And at one time, the IHM sisters, all they did was teaching. Okay. They weren't into other ministries. And they were always known as excellent teachers. If you went to one of their schools, if you had them in high school as a teacher, you were getting a good education. So in looking around at different colleges and universities that offered a doctorate in education, as soon as I saw Immaculata University, I said, I'm going to apply and see if I can get into that university. Now, I was older. I was in my 50s.
Okay.
So I thought, well, maybe that might be an impediment for me applying for a doctorate.
Yeah.
But when I mentioned that in my interview with one of the sisters, she said, oh no. She said, that's a plus. She said, all this teaching experience that you have behind you, she said, that's going to help.
Yeah.
She said, a lot of people in the program don't have that kind of experience. Because I taught elementary school for 10 years, and I taught high school for 15 years. So I had a good background in education.
Yeah, there's a tricky balance there between training and education and actual real-world experience.
Oh, yeah.
And in a field like teaching, or just the broader term education, it really shows when people have been seasoned in the classroom and realize that teaching is more than just conveying the material from the textbook to the minds of your students, but it's just in your very presence in the classroom, your demeanor, your disposition, your interaction with them.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a helpful analogy that you draw between the IHMs and between the Christian brothers. I'm Christian brother educated for my higher education and graduate studies, so I took a lot of courses on studying the Lasallian method of teaching and things like that, and it's geared towards teaching the whole person. It's geared toward their minds, body, and spirit, and how you engage all that, right?
Oh yeah, it's like you said, the experience is primal. It's very important. And before I became a Franciscan, I was a lay teacher in the Archdiocese of Philadelphia for 10 years. And I taught in the elementary schools. I taught at St. Martha's in Northeast Philadelphia. Then from there, I wanted something closer to home. I taught at St. Benedict's in Germantown.
Is that where you're from initially?
I'm from a section called East Falls.
Okay.
And then from St. Benedict's, I taught my last 2 years at the request of a friend. They needed a teacher at Our Lady of Lourdes School, which is on Lancaster Avenue and City Line, right around the Overbrook, right near St. Charles Seminary.
Okay.
So I taught there with the Sisters of Mercy for 2 years. And when I was teaching there, someone reminded me not too long ago, a person that I still keep in contact from there. She said to me one time, she said, do you remember that character we had at school at Our Lady of Lourdes? And I said, no, which one? And she said, Dennis, Will Smith. I said, oh, that's right. I said, he was at Our Lady of Lourdes. I didn't teach him in class, but I remember him and his sister. And they were at Our Lady of Lourdes at the time. if I only knew what kind of a superstar he would have turned out to be,
Yeah.
we might have been able to say, hey, let's treat this guy really well, and maybe he'll come back and talk at our commencement ceremonies or something like that.
Wow, Will Smith, you had the Fresh Prince at your school.
Yeah, he was at Our Lady of Lourdes. And then from there, he went to Archbishop Carroll and Radnor, where the Christian Brothers were running. And then I understand he left there maybe after 2 years and went to the public school.
Gotcha. Okay, and then was off to Hollywood from there.
And off to Hollywood, yeah. We only knew if we only had hindsight.
Yeah. So you said that you taught as a layperson first before you were a Franciscan. So how does that work? Where were you feeling a call first to the vocation of teaching? Were you discerning that call to religious life? Would you mind sharing a little bit about that time in your life?
Sure. At that time, I wasn't thinking about religious life. I was independent. I would come and go as I please. In the Archdiocese of Philadelphia, I did go to school 1 year at Siena College in Laudonville, New York. The OFM Franciscans from Holy Name Province run that school. They also run St. Bonaventure University. And during that year, my father suffered a heart attack and was very sick. And when I came back after the spring semester, my parents said to me they couldn't send me back because my dad was out of work. And I understood. And on Sundays, I would sometimes answer the phone for the priest at St. Helena's Parish. And the pastor there at St. Helena's on 5th and Godfrey was Bishop Graham, who I really liked. And he saw me and he would ask me about how was my dad doing. And he said to me, when do you go back to school? And I told him I wasn't going back. And I told him the reason why. And he said to me, well, what were you going to study? And I said, I want to be a teacher. And he said to me, I know of a program in the Archdiocese where they will hire teachers. You go to school at night and you teach during the day. It was called the cadet program. I don't know if they still have it today. So Bishop Graham called downtown to the diocesan office, set up a meeting with the assistant superintendent of schools. I met with her, and she said to me, could you go tomorrow for an interview at St. Martha's School? So I did. The next day I went up to St. Martha's School. The principal's name was Sister Mary Amadeus, a sister of mercy. She said to me, I could use you as a 7th and 8th grade teacher.
There you go.
I said, Sister, I never taught before. She said, that's all right. She said, we have 3 of each grades. Can you imagine? 3 first grades, 3 second grades, 3 seventh, 3. And she said, you're the only lay teacher in that department. So she said, your 2 mentors will be Sister Benita Marie Smith, and the other sister was Sister Maureen Christie. And those 2 sisters met with me several times during the week and would go over things about classroom management, teaching, assessment, and testing. And I thought, wow, here I'm a student teacher, really, having my own classroom, meeting with these 2 professionals who have been teaching for years. And then I would go to school at night. I went to Chestnut Hill College at night, working on my degree in elementary education. So I was there I was there 2 years, but I didn't have a car. And I had to take public transportation, and it was taking 3 buses to get there from where I lived. I heard that there was an opening at St. Benedict's School in the Germantown section of Philadelphia. So I applied there. The principal's name was Sister Julia. And funny, the sisters that ran that school were Sisters of St. Francis from Glen Riddle, PA, where I'm going to Newman University now.
Mm-hmm.
They ran the school. And the school was a really good school. I was there for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then after 5 years, a friend of mine said to me, we need a teacher at Our Lady of Lourdes. She's having a hard time. And they said, do you think you could just look at the school? And I said, okay. So I went there and I was hired.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was at St. Benedict's, I met a sister who was their vocation director living there, Sister Barbara Lucas.
Mm-hmm.
And she asked me one day, she said, did you ever think about being a priest? I said, no.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, did you ever think about being a brother? And I said, what's a brother? And she explained to me what a brother was.
Mm-hmm.
And it just happened that year, the Archdiocese had a teachers' meeting of all the elementary school teachers
mm-hmm.
up at Bishop Egan High School in Levittown.
Mm-hmm.
So I went up for the meeting. I was in the hall, and I couldn't find the conference room. And lo and behold, standing by the coffee was a brother
mm-hmm.
wearing a black habit.
Mm-hmm.
I introduced myself, and he said, oh, you must be one of the diocesan teachers. I said, yeah. And he told me where the room was. So I went there. We had a break, a coffee break, and lo and behold, coming down the hall was the same brother.
Mm-hmm.
And he waved. He said, you find the room okay? I said, yeah. And I said, brother, I said, I didn't know the Augustinians had Bishop Egan High School.
Mm-hmm.
He said, Augustinians? He said, look at the cord. And I looked, and I said, are you a Franciscan? He said, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I said, but I thought Franciscans were brown.
Mm.
He said, we're third order regular.
Okay.
He said, we wear black. And he said to me, wait here. So he ran into his classroom,
mm-hmm.
and he brought out to me a book by Omar Engelbert called Francis of Assisi, a biography.
Mm-hmm.
And he wrote his number in the book and his name, Brother Mark. And he said to me, read this. If you have any questions, ask me.
Mm-hmm.
There's my phone number. So I read some of the book and when I was teaching at St. Benedict's, and I asked Sister Barbara. And Sister Barbara talked to me about it. And she said, do you meet any of the brothers? And I said, I met one. She said, give him a call.
Mm-hmm.
She said, call him.
Mm-hmm.
So I did. And he said, why don't you come up to the friary for dinner? So I did. Now,
mm-hmm.
this was about 1978, 79.
Okay.
So I met with him maybe every other month. We would go out to dinner,
mm-hmm.
or I would have dinner at the friary.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't enter the Franciscans till 1984, 85. So I saw him all those years in between. We would
mm-hmm.
talk about religious life. And I liked what I saw when the friars were together
mm-hmm.
at meals. I just thought there was a joy and a respect that they had for each other.
Mm-hmm.
They were all in the same ministry,
mm-hmm.
going over, teaching at Bishop Egan High School.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, there was about 30 of them.
Wow.
And I thought, I like this. I wish I could do this.
Mm-hmm.
And it just happened after 3 years. I went up one time for dinner, and Brother Mark said to me, our vocation director is here from Winchester, Virginia, Brother Paul. I said, okay. He said, I'd like you to talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
Went into the room, talked with Brother Paul. He had a manila envelope. He said, you've been seeing Brother Mark for a couple of years now. I said, yeah. He said, what are you going to do? Are you going to make a decision? And I said, I don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, first step, fill out these applications. And he gave me the manila envelope.
Mm-hmm.
So I did. I filled out the application. I had a medical, physical done. You had to go to the dentist. Then they required you at that time, you had to see a psychologist.
Mm-hmm.
All that preliminary. And in February, I got a letter, and it said, "You have been accepted into the postulancy program, Franciscan's Third Order Regular. You are to report to Loretto on August the 15th." Mm-hmm. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is so final. And
you're enlisted.
So I thought, well, and I remember telling my parents, and my parents said to me, well, it won't hurt to give it a try. Mm-hmm. There's nothing, give it a try. If you don't like it, just come back. Mm-hmm. And luckily, where I was teaching, the principal's name at that time was Sister Mary Rita, a mercy nun. Mm-hmm. I told her, and I said, I'm a little bit leery about this. And she said, we all were. She said, give it a try. Yeah. She said, Dennis, if you don't like it, you come home. She said, there'll always be a teaching job for you. So that's how I entered. Brother Mark and I, we were always good friends. I tell everybody he was my sponsor, bringing me in. Right. Now, the sad thing, the tragic, very tragic, that thing that happened was Brother Mark passed away mid-January of this year from pancreatic cancer. And he was buried in Rome because he was our general econome, our general treasurer for the whole order. Mm-hmm. And the blessing part of it, I was able to see him around Thanksgiving time. He came over to the States, and we had time together, and we went out to dinner together.
Oh, good.
Yeah, but there was nothing in the forecast of the future that he would pass away, and everybody still today is even shocked that we lost a great, great friar.
Yeah, yeah. And especially such a personal relationship you had with him.
Yeah, so very good.
You maintained that through all these years.
All these years, and he used to say to me, I remember when I was working on the doctorate, he used to say, you better do well. People know I brought you in the community. And when I was living here at Daylesford, I celebrated my 25th Jubilee.
Oh, okay.
And Abbot Richard Antonucci was the main celebrant at the Mass. And there was a luncheon afterwards. And Brother Mark came to my Jubilee Mass here from Rome.
Great.
From Rome. I had a number of friars. Brother Mark came, and Brother Mark, I walked down the aisle with Abbot Richard Antonucci, and I said to Brother Mark, I said, I want you to walk with me because you brought me into the community. And he did.
Yeah.
So that was a great time.
Yeah. No, was Brother Mark a teacher as well?
Brother Mark was a teacher, a mathematics teacher and business teacher. Okay. He was also principal at Bishop Egan High School.
Okay. Yeah, it was interesting how this past Sunday at Mass, Abbot Dominic gave a homily about the notion of a call within a call, or a calling within a calling, or his more exact words. And I'm seeing that theme kind of unfold within your story, where you felt this call to the classroom and to be a teacher, and then that led you to something even more in your experience with the Franciscans.
Oh yeah, the interesting thing, Andrew, with that is when I entered, I was older than the other guys. I was 29 years old.
Okay.
And I was considered a delayed vocation. The other guys coming in, they were 19, 20. And I was the oldest. And when I would introduce myself, I would also always say, my name's Dennis. And they would say, what do you do? And I said, I'm a teacher. And I remember my postulant director saying to me, don't say that. First say you're a Franciscan. Then he said, first be a good Franciscan. Then the teacher part will flow from that.
There you go.
So I entered later in life, and the younger guys, but that's the way it is. And I've always enjoyed teaching. I teach at the college level now. I could never go back to elementary school, which I always loved. I could not go back to high school because it takes too much energy. I don't know how high school teachers do it and elementary school teachers do it. And I say that to my students. You know, this is a demanding job. If you're in it for money, forget it. You're not going to. If you're in it for something easy, teaching is very demanding today.
Yeah, it really is. And my wife and I now have 2 small children, and I was an educator and high school teacher, and then eventually an admin in campus ministry when we were dating and engaged. But it was really when I kind of ended that career and went to finish my doctoral degree that we got married, and then eventually very soon after had children. And so I just look back and I say to her, I'm like, I really don't know if I could be teaching right now. Just the amount of energy that the classroom and the students demand of you there. And to be at your best, you really have to be able to give them that energy.
It's a lot.
Yeah, and to then be able to be at home and be present with my family, and the insane amount of energy that these 2 small creatures, these 2 small humans demand of me. It's really something. But yeah, it's definitely a special experience to be in the classroom. I remember when I went from being a teacher strictly in the classroom to teaching and then being in an administrative position as well, and I just could pick up that difference immediately. It was like you were leaving one, culture almost and going to a foreign culture where when you're in the classroom, that's your own little world for 40 minutes or 70 minutes or however long you're with the students. And it's a great and special experience to be able to partake in the learning process with them that way. And I like your story too, because it's talk about like a call within a call. It's kind of like you felt this call to the classroom, you felt this call to the Franciscans, and then in giving your life to the Franciscans and that higher purpose of Christ really within that, your vocation initially as a teacher is then amplified even more, right? And here you're going to study for a doctoral degree. Here you're going back into the classroom and you're teaching students who are going to be teachers. And it's like a gift that keeps on giving in some regards.
Oh, yeah. I really like teaching on the college level.
Okay.
I'll start teaching there in September again. But when I think about it, like you were saying with the energy level, when I started teaching, I remember at St. Martha's in the Great Northeast Philadelphia, Academy Road, I had 55 in a classroom.
Wow.
55, and we're talking 3 of each grade. 55. I don't know how I did it, even with control. And when I taught at St. Benedict's in Germantown, I had about 42 in a classroom.
Wow, that's still a lot.
It was a lot, and it wasn't until I got to Our Lady of Lourdes where we started to have maybe 30 in a classroom. The numbers were starting to go down. But I don't know how I did it back then. It's amazing.
When I taught high school, my largest class was like 30, 31.
Well, that's a lot for high school kids.
Yeah, and then we would have these, we had a lecture hall style classroom where once a cycle, we had a 6-day letter cycle, and once a cycle, in the theology department, you would meet as a theology large group class. So that was teaching like a more lecture hall size class of, say, 50 and up. And that's just a totally different animal. Than a traditional classroom. And you talk about energy and all that. Wow, that's a lot.
I remember at Bishop Egan, my classroom was on the 3rd floor, and all windows on the one side. And in the wintertime, if you saw a snowflake, we getting out early? Are the buses coming? It would cultivate the whole day with, are we getting out early? We going home early? The bus is coming? And I thought to myself, thank God I don't get that at St. Francis University in Loretto, Pennsylvania, where it snows all the time in the winter.
Yeah.
And at St. Francis, I always give St. Francis a plug. It's an exceptional university, very good university, founded by our friars in 1847. We're the oldest Catholic college in the United States.
Wow.
St. Francis University in Loretto, PA. And we have excellent programs, education, nursing, physician assistant, health sciences abound there. And we have good students. I just got an email 2 weeks ago from one of the students. In my last class, I had about 7 football players, all great men, delightful young men. And they didn't see me on campus. They didn't see my car because my license plate on my car says Bro D. And so they know if I'm parked there, I'm in the classroom. They didn't see that. And the one said, we looked on the faculty list and your name's not there. They said, where are you? Are you okay? So I wrote back and I said, I'm fine. I said, I'm doing a sabbatical. And I said, I'm living in Paoli. They wrote back and they said, oh, that's great, brother. We hope you have a good time in Italy. I asked the Norbertines, is there any place in Italy named Paoli? They said, not that we know. But they're a great bunch of students. I really like them.
Yeah, so from Loreto to Paoli, and the Norbertines are a very prominently Italian community here.
They are here.
Yeah, Italian Americans.
You know, with the extension talking about St. Francis University, I started teaching there in 2013, as soon as I got my degree. So last year at this time, a year ago, I asked my provincial, could I apply for a sabbatical? And the question was, you have to fill these forms out naturally, which I did. And I filled the forms out and I met with my provincial and it went to a committee and it would be from January till June. The sabbatical was approved. He said, sure. And I'm taking this sabbatical while taking courses at Newman University, which is a 20-minute drive from here. Newman University is also a Franciscan school.
That's right.
They have a whole department devoted to Franciscan studies. So I thought to myself, why not take advantage of that and take courses related to St. Francis and Franciscanism? They even have a whole section in their library devoted to Franciscan studies. I think his sister's name is Sister Pat Hutchinson. She runs that department of the library. It's a marvelous program, and I thought, this is great for me to get into this. I want to learn more about Francis, and twice a month I meet with the spiritual director, who's a sister of St. Francis. Her name is Sister Julia Keegan, and she lives at the convent there next to Newman University. So I meet with her. We go over my studies. We talk about the reflection papers that I'm doing. I mean, it's really an enriching program. And the nice thing about it, I could come here to Daylesford Abbey with the Norbertines. The Spirituality Center, the rooms are wonderful. I mean, you have your own bedroom, your own bathroom. You get your 3 meals a day here, very good cooks. They offer morning prayer, evening prayer, and daily Eucharist. And around this area, this mainline area, you have Villanova University, you have Cabrini University, you have Rosemont, Immaculata, Newman. I mean, all these places.
Those are just the Catholic schools.
They're just the Catholic universities.
Eastern University, they were just here last weekend with us. So there's.
It's a place where it's like a no-brainer. I want to take some studies. Could I do room and board living at Daylesford Abbey with the Norbertines? And I would go no other place. It's the place here. The Norbertines welcome you. They make me feel like one of their own. I had a birthday 2 weeks ago. I didn't mention it to anyone. I didn't say a word to anyone here. In my mailbox was a birthday card. All the Norbertines signed it. I was flabbergasted. With a very generous gift inside the envelope that they gave me. And I thought, boy, wasn't that nice that they did that to me. Really, it really touched me that they did that.
Yeah, they are an incredibly welcoming community.
They are.
Hospitable too. Hospitality is so important.
They make you feel welcome.
Yeah, and it's not just like in like the operational sense of being, you know, hospitable as an abbey or a business or a hotel or whatever, but spiritually hospitable too, right?
Right. You have morning prayer, evening prayer. You have daily Eucharist. I mean, it's what you can't ask for more. And the people here at the center, the spirituality center, I remember telling, I think I was talking to you, or I don't know if it was Father John Zagarello, the prior, but the chair in my room was not right for me. I just mentioned that. The next day, I was told a new chair is going to be moved into my room. And it was. I couldn't believe it. I mean, that fast. So accommodating.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really, so, you know, I would promote Daylesford Abbey even to my own community. If you want to do a retreat, they have wonderful retreats here. They have good retreat masters here. I mean, there's no other place I would think of going.
We appreciate the plug and the endorsement, and we're grateful to have you here. It's nice, too, as the director of the Spirituality and Retreat Center, to hear firsthand guests, you know, telling of their experience here in a way that's very honest and authentic. So
it is. That. I mean, I remember a week ago, the housekeeper here said to me, "Would you mind if I clean your room and bathroom?" I said, "Would I mind?" And she did.
Yeah.
Everything was spotless. I mean, she even emptied the trash cans in my room. And I thought, I can do that.
Yeah.
Everything was spotless. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we try and make people feel welcome and at home, and we're grateful to extend the space to you to be able to, you know, take this time in your sabbatical and, you know, be able to also rest here at the Abbey and be enriched that way. So, Neil, you, as we kind of, you know, wrap things up here, you are an educator. Would you mind educating me and maybe some of our listeners and audience on the letters next to your name are TOR, and that stands for Franciscans Third Order Regular. Would you mind explaining the different distinctions of Franciscans in that way? Because that's a broad term, right, that people use, but that can refer to a couple or a few different branches there. Would you mind explaining that?
Sure. From what I understand, when Francis was living, he founded 3 orders. The first order are the OFMs, and we know that there are a lot of branches of OFMs. You have the OFM caps, you know, different families broke from the OFMs. So you have a broad range of families of Order of Friar Minors. The second order that Francis founded, in conjunction, was with St. Clare.
Okay.
So the second order, they're called the Poor Clares. And then we're the third order that he founded.
Okay.
And it was really the faithful living out in town among the lay people. He did a letter to the faithful, which became our rule. And he founded the Third Order Regular, where we, at the time when he founded the Third Order, were working with people in the world.
Okay.
Not so much living. At the time, they called it a monastery, or the correct term would be living in a friary, where we're more out into the world.
Okay.
But he founded 3 prominent orders. The first order, Order of Friar Minors, they wear brown. Then he founded with St. Clare, the Poor Clare nuns, and then my community, Third Order Regular. And we were always told the reason we wear black is because of penitents. We're penitents.
Okay.
And the interesting thing, around 1209, 1210, if I get my facts right, when Francis went around gathering men that wanted to join him, he would introduce themselves as men of penitence from Assisi. You know, they didn't say, well, I'm a Franciscan. He said, we're penitents from Assisi in Italy. Interesting. And that's the charism of the Third Order Regular. And I belong to Sacred Heart Province. And our base is in Loretto, Pennsylvania, our main headquarters. And we have a diverse area of ministries. Our primary ministry at one time was education, because we had high schools, we had a preparatory school. We have 2 excellent colleges, Franciscan University of Steubenville, and we also have St. Francis University, where I teach at in Loretto, Pennsylvania.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. That was
thank you.
A great little succinct history lesson there. And thank you, too, for being on the podcast today, for sharing a little bit of your journey in terms of your vocation and call to the classroom and then to religious life. And for sharing, too, about how the Abbey has been able to create, or really you and the Abbey have been in a mutually beneficial relationship.
Where, very much.
You know, the Norbertines appreciate having you here, and it's life-giving for them, and it certainly is life-giving for you to have a comfortable place to be, especially at that spiritually, while you enjoy your sabbatical, which
thank you,
as
Andrew.
A teacher, you know, we should all get the great honor of having at some point. Right?
And I say I'm very lucky. I'm very grateful to my province. You know, I'm really lucky that I can spend 6 months in growth and understanding, and nothing rushed, you know, taking it day by day, and having a spiritual director. It's really a blessing to me.
Excellent. Well, it's great to have you with us today, Brother Dennis. And
thank you, Andrew.
Absolutely, and we look forward to the rest of your stay with us through June. So it's great to have you here, and we thank all of our guests and listeners and viewers for being with us. We are grateful for your support. That's what makes this podcast and all of our Springhouse productions possible, and that support comes in many forms. So whether you give us your financial support, your spiritual support through prayer, or by sharing this content on social media with emails, send it in a text to your family and friends if you think that it might resonate with them. It all helps us out, and hopefully it's beneficial in some way to you in your life. So if you have any questions about making a retreat or are interested in inquiring about a sabbatical, as Brother Dennis is doing now here at the Spirituality and Retreat Center at Daylesford Abbey, you can reach out to me at 610-601-8702 or send me an email, adr@daylesford.org. And if you are feeling that call to religious life, and that's something that you feel as if the Norbertine community here might be able to help you with, then by all means, check us out online at daylesford.org/vocations or send an email to vocations@daylesford.org. So thanks so much for tuning in, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dennis.
Thank you, Andrew.